Hi, folks. Thanks for joining us at I/O today. My name is David Schachter. I'm a product manager here at Google. I primarily focus on ads and specifically app campaigns. And that's what I'm going to be talking about today. Specifically, I'm going to be talking about how to grow with tips for Firebase integrations with your ad campaigns. So we've got a great agenda lined up for everybody today. But before I dive into that, just want to note that you can ask questions in the chat. There are TAs standing by. They will try and answer your questions as they come in. And if there's any that we can't answer online, then we'll try and get to them at a later time. But yeah, thanks and enjoy the presentation. I'm going to first open up Firebase, and I'm going to sort of walk through some steps on how to create a Firebase project for your app, and then how to create conversions and audiences in Firebase. Once we do that, I'm going to switch over to Google Ads, and I'm going to show you how to create a Google Ads account. Then next, I'm going to tell you how to link the Firebase to the Google Ads account. And the last steps will be how to import conversions from Firebase into Google Ads, and then how to import audiences from Firebase into Google Ads. And so hopefully that gives you a good overview of at least how to get started with Firebase and Google Ads. One thing to note is that there is a code lab. You're welcome to follow along with the code lab if you want or can. One thing to note is it requires you to install an SDK into your app, the Firebase SDK, which you may not have done. So it's okay if you just want to read along now and then do the steps later as well. But yeah, let's jump into it. Just a quick introduction on what Firebase is and some major pointers about it. So Firebase is a tool that helps with lots of different things, but in particular, it can help with reporting. So if you have an app and you want to get some details on how your users are performing and lots of various reports on there, it has unlimited reporting capabilities. It allows you to create conversions, which can, of course, be imported into ads, as well as audiences, which can be imported to ads or just can be analyzed inside of GA for Firebase. It's also app first, and so that's nice. So if you're just an app developer and that's what you're really focusing on, Firebase provides a lot of good solutions for you. And then I think maybe it's also important to note that it's free, so there's no cost to using Firebase, and you get all these nice tools with that. Google Ads. So Google Ads is a way to purchase advertising on Google's O&O platforms, as well as on our third-party networks. So it's a nice tool if you want to advertise your app to lots of different services all at once. Okay, so let's go into Firebase. So I'm going to jump into Firebase itself. And you should be able to see Firebase. The first step, which I'm going to teach you, if you're in their code lab, you can go to the next section. Is how to create a project. So there's a button up here that says create a project. Pretty self-explanatory. You could type in a name, call it test project. And then eventually it will load and then allows me to hit accept. Okay, nope, not that. Okay, cool. So this allows us to start a project with that particular name. Note that I actually can't click continue here because this is a demo version of Firebase, which means I can't create anything. So I'm going to show you the next step in the code lab, which has some screenshots of when I actually did this offline in a separate account. So once you've done that and you've created this Firebase project, you have this new entity now. You can actually add your app, add Firebase to your Android app itself. So inside of Firebase, if you're on the main console, there will be a button that says add an app. I don't see it here, again, because I'm in the demo version, but you should see it, and it should lead you to a screen that looks like this. And the first step is you just need to register your app. So you would enter in your app name and your app ID here. So in Android's case, it's the Android package name. iOS is slightly different. I don't have a screenshot of that, but just follow the instructions and should hopefully lead you to adding the correct iTunes URL. You then have to after you actually register your app, the second thing is you will actually download a config file. So when you download that config file, it'll actually give you something that you're going to put inside of your app in order to actually get Firebase running in there. Once you've clicked that button, you can see you'll end up with this type of screen here, and that'll actually give you this file, which you'll be able to actually use. And then after that, you actually add the Firebase SDK to your app. One thing is make sure that you implement specifically the Google Analytics for Firebase SDK. And the developer, the setup wizard, actually has separate instructions again for Android and iOS apps. So make sure you pick the right one. But you should end up with a screen like this, and it gives you some code tips when you actually are adding the Firebase SDK itself. So you can read through those, and that will help you actually implement and put the SDK inside of your app and get it ready to start sending signals over to your new Firebase project. Cool. So the next thing we're going to do is how to create conversions in your Firebase project for your app. I just want to, there's some optional steps here. I'll talk about them quickly. Firebase already actually logs a lot of automated events for you. There's a link here. You can go view what they are. But I think there's like 23 automated events. For a lot of app developers, that's a great start. However, Firebase does allow you to log custom events. I'm not going to go through them here, but there are some code examples that show you exactly how to add those custom events inside of your app. And that will allow you to track lots of different things. For example, you could track when the user completes level 40 if you're if you have a game, or if the user purchases a certain combination of things if you have a retail app. So there's a lot of different variability in what type of events that you can log here. The next thing I want to add is that you can actually add some verbose logging that can help you monitor that the events are actually being logged correctly. Which, if this is your first time actually implementing some custom events, it might help you actually debug if something it doesn't seem to look right, or the events aren't ending up in Firebase correctly. Okay, so now assuming that you've got the custom events set up, and then you're actually seeing them in the Firebase project, let's go head over to Firebase and see what it will look like. So on your tab here, there's in the analytics section, there is an area called events. So we're going to click on that, and you're going to end up seeing a bunch of events that we have set up for a Google app. It's called Flood It, which is a game. You can actually download it from the Android store, and you can play it if you want. But these are some of the events that you'll see that we've set up in Firebase to analyze some of the data. And you can kind of see the numbers. The events name, the count of the number of times you've been fired, the number of users that have used those events, et cetera, and then some metrics on how they change. But we're actually going to specifically focus on this button here. This button, which is grayed out for me, again, because it's a demo version, but if you click it, this actually marks the event as a conversion. Now, what that means is that this event is now ready to be sent over into Google Ads. If you don't click this, it won't go to Google Ads. And that can be important, specifically if it's like an event you just don't want to show up in ads. But if you do want the event in ads, then you have to click this button, and that will actually send the event over. Okay. So I think that's it for creating conversions. Next off, we're going to switch to audiences. So I'm going to spend most of the time in the code lab, but I'll show you where this is in Firebase. Right under the events word, there is an area called audiences. So if you click on that and it loads, you will see a bunch of audiences that we've already set up. And so you can see one-off audiences users that have crashes, which might be good to analyze what might be going wrong then. We have an audience for people who are beating levels. We have an audience called expert users. And these are all set up basically custom audiences that we've set up to track certain things. So going to the code lab, you'll see an example. So it'll look like my Firebase UI, except there's a button up here called New Audience, which you can click on, and it will allow you to actually create new types of audiences that show up in this UI. And so I'm going to walk through a few ways to actually create an audience. There's a couple of different methods. In particular, there's 3 ways to do it. So you can create a custom audience. You can create a template, and then you can modify those existing parameters, and then you can actually use a suggested audience. And so I'll kind of walk through the differences here so you can see what those will look like and the advantages and disadvantages of each. Cool. So the first one is creating a brand new audience by defining all the parameters yourself. So this has a lot of customization here. So feel free to play around with this and create some different types of audiences and do some trial and error here. But basically, your screen's going to look a lot like this, and it's going to allow you to add conditions to the group It'll allow you to add a sequence of events. It'll also allow you to add groups to exclude. And it will also show you a summary of those audiences, and that's pretty neat. It shows you like all of your users and then what percentage of users this particular audience actually applies to. So it gives you an idea of how big or how small those audiences are. You could also set membership duration periods. So users can come into the audience based on some trigger and then can be moved out of the audience based on time. Okay, so that's the creating a new audience. By far, it's the most customizable, but it's also the most intensive. So as a starting point, you might actually want to choose another option. So one example is to use a template and modify the existing parameters. So when you're building a new audience, you'll see a screen that looks like this. And there will be a section called templates. So if you click on that, you'll get a few templates that show up. Right now we see demographics, technology, and acquisition. So in this case, I've clicked on demographics. And you can see that this audience is kind of already, it gives you a template for what this audience could look like. And then it allows you to fill in some very basic information. And then allows you to build basically an audience that specializes in a demographic view. There's a few other templates you can play around with. Technology, which is like the different the browsers that they're using or the different devices they're using. Otherwise, you can build one off of acquisition, which is the way that user was acquired. Cool. The last one is a suggested audience. So this basically gives you a list of, I would say, pre-created audiences that you can either use out of the gate or you could modify and then save it as a brand new audience. So in this example, in this screenshot that we have here, this is a suggested audience of non-purchasers. So you can look at what it's looking for. It basically says exclude users when they've made a purchase. Pretty basic, but that's a very simple audience that you could get started with, and then you could track the users for there. And yeah, so that's audience creation. Again, I encourage you to go ahead and play around with it, make some different audiences, analyze the data for those audiences. One thing to note, and we'll get to this later, is these audiences can later be used in Google Ads, and for certain campaigns, you can actually target those audiences, and you can actually run campaigns for those audiences. So I'll talk about that a little bit later. Excellent. So now we're going to learn how to create a Google Ads account, and I can actually do this live for you. So you'll be able to follow step by step. One thing to note is you don't actually need the Firebase SDK installed in your app. So unlike the last couple of steps we talked about, you can actually do this with me. So I'll give folks a few seconds to head over to Google Ads if they want to start following along and create an account. Note that if you already have an account, you don't need to do this. You can just use your existing account, or you can create a new one. So it's up to you. All right, so let's get started. So there is a button up here. It should say sign in, and yeah, you guys can see it. I'm going to click that, and I am going to sign in with my Google account. There's a button here that says a new Google Ads account. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to create a brand new one. You can see I have lots. So we're going to make a new one for the purposes of this workshop. And we're going to get a screen when it loads. Okay, so you are going to see what's called a smart flow. So this is your first time setting up a Google Ads account. You can follow these steps, but since we're focusing on apps today, I'm actually going to switch over to expert mode, which is down here. That's going to allow us to create an app campaign right out of the gate instead of creating a web campaign. So it's up to you if you want to do this, but assuming that you're here because of apps, we can click the button that says switch to expert mode. And that's going to switch the UI over and give us some more options. Here we go. All right, so we are going to click on this button. It says app promotion. Looks like this. When you hover over it, you get some information. You can basically get more installs, interactions, and pre-registrations for your app. So we're going to click on it. Yes, and we get some options here. We can create an app installs campaign. We can create an app engagement campaign, or we can create an app pre-registration campaign. and that one's for Android only. But let's try and we're going to create an app installs campaign. So you select your mobile platform, Android or iOS, the two that we support. So let's say we're going to look at an Android app, and I'm going to pick Flood It. Yeah, which is a Google-owned app. You obviously probably want to pick your own app, but for these demo purposes, I'll be taking Flood It, which is the Firebase project that I had shown you earlier. Click Continue, and great. Now we're going to actually set up the campaign. So we can give it a name. I'm going to call it My Flood It Campaign. Okay. We can switch our locations. So the default is all countries and territories, but you can choose to target the US and Canada, or you can enter a completely different location. I'm just going to pick the US for now, but you can change that whatever you want. For languages, the default again is English, but you can change that. You can remove English. You can change it to whatever language is appropriate for your audience. I note that you can create many campaigns later on, and so you might have different campaigns that target different locations and different languages, depending on your app and the assets that you have and the users that you would like to acquire. You can give it a budget. I'm going to give it a grand total of $1. That is the average daily budget. You can give more, but that's, again, demo. Going to just start with that. Okay, so now down to the bidding section. We're going to focus on install volume. There's other options you can choose. You can optimize towards in-app actions or in-app actions value. We're going to start with install volume, which is the simplest. Basically, we're just going to try and get more installs for Flood It. We then need to tick on how we're going to track install volume. Now, for Android, we actually it's actually an easier setup because we get access to the Google Play download. So that's how we can the Google Play install, which is how we can actually track our installations. One thing to note is that for iOS apps, you can get past this flow without selecting something, but at some point you will need a conversion to select, usually coming from Firebase or one of the MMPs. So just to let you know, otherwise the campaign won't be able to track installs and they won't show up there. And of course, yeah, Firebase can also be sent over for Android as well. It's not just iOS, it works for both. So the next step, we're actually going to target all users since we haven't set up any in-app actions yet. And then we're actually just not going to set a target cost per install. So this is going to run basically what we call a max conversions campaign, which will get you as many installs with our budget of $1. Okay, and then we're not going to bother with a starter end date. We're just going to hit save and continue. Cool, it's thinking about ad groups. Okay, so now we're going to create our first ad group. We can name it ad group 1. That's the default name. And if you look at what's required, you'll notice that the only things that are actually required to start your campaign are 2 headlines and a description. So we're going to enter those. You can also add images, videos, and now you can add HTML5, which is really nice. But these are different types of assets that you can have for your ad campaigns to make your users more interested in your ad and in your app specifically as well. So I highly encourage you to upload high quality images, high quality videos, and if you have the capability, some HTML5, which is basically playable ads. They're really fun and users really enjoy being able to try out things just in the ad. So definitely encourage doing that. You don't have to do it right away, but definitely come back and think about it. Okay, so we'll type in some headlines for Flood It, which is, we'll say Flood It is fun, and then we'll say enjoy the game of colors, and then we'll enter a basic description, which is have fun, making colors around the world. Why not? Okay, so we have our nice description. And then we can hit save. One thing to note is that this shows you a preview of what your ads might look like. And it shows you, of course, all of the different channels that Google can serve on. So we have display, search, YouTube, even Discover, and then Google Play. So let's just look at a display ad. This shows you what it basically rotates through some example ads for you. So this is cool. If you upload a couple of different assets, you kind of want to see what the user is going to see, like on the device based on the different formats that they have. So you can see that here. So this is, flooded's fun, and you can say, have fun making colors around the world. So the text we entered is actually showing them the preview, as well as some of the images from the App Store that we pulled, the app icon, the app name, some of the reviews, depending on the format. So it's pretty cool. Definitely take a look at these. You can cycle through them here, and it will show you some of the various formats. All right, now we'll hit save. Okay, and then you have to confirm your payment info. Again, they need you're going to put a credit card on file and follow these instructions here. I already have a credit card saved to this account, but yeah, we can hit submit, and this will actually create a your Google Ads account for you. If it's your first one, or if it's another one, congratulations, you can now explore your campaign. And this campaign is running, right? So it still has to go through some of the assets that need to get approved, but the campaign is actually enabled now. So we just created a real Google Ads account and a real campaign for $1 a day. But yeah, hopefully that gives you a good overview of how creating Google Ads works. All right, so now we're going to we're actually going to switch bases, and we're going to go back to Firebase. The reason we're going to go back to Firebase is I'm going to show you how to link your Google Ads account to Firebase. So in Firebase, and I'll give you a few seconds in case you are actually following live. All right. So in on the upper left, there is a gears icon next to Project Overview, and it says Project Settings. So we're going to click that. Yeah, and then on these you're going to see 3 tabs. One of those tabs is called Integrations, and there's lots of different products that you can integrate Firebase with. One of those products is Google Ads. And so you can see we already have 2 linked accounts. So we've done this in the past already. You notice there's no button. But for you, assuming that you do have a Firebase account and you follow these steps, you will actually see a button called Manage. The reason I can't see it again is because I'm on a demo account. So for these steps, I'm gonna show you the screenshots that we took earlier. So if you click on this, if you look at this card, first thing to note is you will either see Link or Manage. In this screenshot, we see Manage because we've already linked an account. We saw the 2 ads accounts were linked. If you don't have any currently linked accounts, you will see the button Link, but mostly just do the same thing. They give you access to actually link the Firebase account to Google Ads. So when you click on that, in this case, these screenshots, we click Manage, you will see the list of accounts that are currently linked and another button that says Link Account. So this Link Account allows you to link another account. In this case, it would be a 3rd Google Ads account. You could also edit an existing account if you really want to, and you can see them here as well. But assuming that you wanted to link a new ads account, and you click this button that the red arrow is pointing to, you'll get a list of Google Ads accounts that you have access to. Now, one thing that's really important is that you need administrative access to both the Firebase project and to the Google Ads account. In some companies, these are different people. So you have to make sure that there needs to be at least one person or at least one account, one Google account that has both admin accesses. Otherwise, you won't be able to perform this step. But assuming that you figured that out, and that's not a problem for you, you will see the list of Google Ads accounts that you could link to. It even allows you to click into them to see if that's the right one, because we named them all the same here. But anyway, you could click the ones that you want to link, and then there will be a button at the very bottom that says Link to Google Ads. You click that, and then the linking's done. You can verify that by hopefully seeing that new account show up in that list that we had looked at before. And then, of course, the card should say 3 instead of 2, if that step went correctly. Okay. So now that we have done the linking, we are going to go back to Google Ads, and I'm going to show you how to import conversions from Firebase into Google Ads. So if you remember back a couple steps ago in Firebase, we actually selected some conversions and we clicked the mark as conversions and sent them over to ads. So now we're going to go see where those ended up. So I'm actually going to use a different Google Ads account. I can't use the one I just created because that one's not linked, but we have another Google Ads account that's already been linked. It's one of those two that we saw in just the very last step. This is what a larger Google Ads account looks like. You can see there's lots of campaigns running right now, but we're not going to look at those. We're actually going to go up here in the upper section, and there's a little button called Tools and Settings, and then under Measurement, there's the word Conversions. So we're going to click that. And you will see a list of conversions. So these conversions have already been imported, but we're going to import some new ones. So there's a plus button up here that if you hover over says conversion. If we click the plus button, we get a few different options. This basically allows you to add conversions into this Google Ads account. So you've got website conversions, app conversions. You can even add phone calls, and in some cases, you can import conversions manually. So we're going to click on app, and that's where all of the Firebase stuff will show up. So this includes app installs, in-app purchases, and in-app actions. So we click that, and we get a few options. We see Google Analytics for properties, and that's Firebase. That's what we're going to actually show you today. There are two other options. One is Google Play. So if you link your Google Play developer account and your AdWords, your Google Ads account, you actually can import certain events from Google Play. The third one is a third-party app analytics, which is an MMP. So you can select your MMP here and actually set up conversion tracking with them. And that way, the MMP can send conversions into Google Ads. But we're going to focus on the Firebase one. Now, if you click on this, you're going to see the list of events that the Firebase account not only was tracking, but also had been marked as a conversion. And you can see a large list of them. It's all of the events from that Firebase project will show up here. So you'll see different apps, mostly from Bingo, Blast, and Floodit. You will also see you've got Android and iOS conversions and descriptions and lots of that stuff. So what you can do is you can click several of the events. Let's say I click those and add to cart and app update and lots of different events. Let's say I wanted to import those 6. You see that I have 6 selected. So you can actually click import and continue. So I'm not going to do that because this is a running account. But if you were to do that, then those events would then show up in the list of conversions on this screen here. And that means you now have a link between Firebase and Google Ads, and that link is sending these events from Firebase into Google Ads in real time, which is nice because you can now use these events to create app campaigns with, such as if you wanted to create an app campaign that optimizes for Floodit's in-app purchase event, you now have that event being tracked in AdWords. Okay, so I think we've covered conversion tracking. Let me make sure there's nothing to add. Nope, should be it. Okay, so for the last step, we are going to look at how to import those audiences. And I will show you an example. I'll go back to the original ads, the ads account. Show you this one. So in the tools and settings, there is a section under shared library called Audience Manager. And if you click on that, once it loads, it will show us information about audiences. Okay, so in here, we actually only have one audience currently selected, but we have the ability to add more audiences. And I'm going to use, I'm going to follow along here just because there's, in the screenshots, there was some more audiences set up in a different account. But basically, what you should see is a screen that looks like this. And if you've already set up audiences, you'll see a list of audiences that's shown up there. So these are audiences you can actually manually create inside of Google Ads, or you can import from Firebase. And so you remember a few steps ago, we actually had those audiences set up in Firebase. So what you would do is you would click this blue button inside of Google Ads, and then you would click on, you get this list, you would click on app users. So again, you're gonna see some, there's other options here. You can actually add audiences based on website visitors, YouTube users, even a customer list, and some combination of audiences. But in this case, if we click app users, we get a screen that looks like this. So this allows us to actually create our app audience for usage in our Google Ads campaigns. The first thing is we would give the audience a name. You would then select an app. And then there's options on how to pre-fill the audience, as well as a description if you want. And then this allows you, so this next step I'm going to talk about real quick. This actually allows you to build a brand new audience. You can follow the instructions here and create new audiences inside of Google Ads. But I'm actually going to move down and show you how to use an existing audience, because assuming that we imported it from Firebase. This would allow you, so basically you get this list of audiences here that you've imported. Select the checkbox next to the audience that you want, and then you would actually select on which campaign or which ad group to apply to. So depending on the campaign type you've created, you can actually apply audiences to either a whole campaign, you can apply audiences to an ad group, or you can apply audiences to none of it. So some campaigns don't allow audiences. So make sure that the campaign type that you're looking at actually allows for audiences. Otherwise, this step won't work and the campaign won't actually show up there. Once you've done that, you will then get a checkbox that shows you which campaign or ad group that you want to add the audience to. And in this case, there's only one campaign that's listed, and that is a sales search campaign, which you can select and then click next. And then in the last step, you can select the targeting setting for that audience. So hopefully that explains how to actually import the audience or create a new audience if you want, and then how to attach that audience to a campaign or to an ad group if that's what you wish. So yeah, that's actually about it for the presentation part of the workshop. There's some a lot of good materials, further reading here. A link to the Google Ads Help Center and Firebase Help Center is included inside the code lab, but you're definitely welcome to explore those links. And then inside of Firebase and Google Ads, there's also a lot of great links into the Help Center. So if you click on those buttons, they look like little question marks. They can actually lead you into different places where you can learn more about how this stuff works. So yeah, I think that's about it. Cool. So it doesn't look like there are any questions. Yeah, I think we could probably end the workshop here.